Hello, and welcome to the Blue Pencil Sessions at the Creative Academy. This is where we take a look at some of your pages and offer you our feedback. I'm Eileen. I'm here today with my colleagues, Crystal and Donna. Sometimes we agree, and sometimes we don't. So today we're taking a look at a fantasy piece by Ieva, and it's a continuation of our previous pencil with her. So if you haven't checked that one out, you might want to do that before that. So as we dive in, what are sort of your initial thoughts with it, Crystal?
I like the point of view. I think it's a really interesting character, and I'm looking forward to getting to know him a little better. I do have some questions around how old he is. That part isn't coming through. We do know from previous questions that this character might be on the spectrum for autism, so that is sort of one of the, I think, the muddling factors in terms of getting a sense of age, but we weren't clear because we haven't read the rest of the manuscript. Is the manuscript as a whole, we know it's fantasy, but is it geared at YA? Is it middle grade? Is it adult, but has one of the point of view characters who's younger? So we do need some clarification, partly just contextual clarification, but also just to know that for your reader so far, that part isn't really coming through. We know from an earlier scene that he thinks one of the girls is cute and he gave her this rabbit that he caught. And so we know he's got a little bit of an interest in girls, but we don't know if it's a friendly, like, I wish you would talk to me and we're 7 kind of thing, or if it's more like he's, 13 or 14 and the interest is slightly different. So it would be good.
Or 16 or 17.
Or 16 or 17. Yeah, we don't know. So it would be good just to have a sense a little bit of, what's going on there. We assume since everyone's physically able to pick on him that he's smaller, if not actually younger.
And just one of the reasons why this came up is because of the choice of words that are being used. So one of the words that was used in this particular segment is confoundment. And I stopped on that and thought, okay, if this is, my assumption was because this is the only character we've met, and I assumed he was like under 10, that this would be a middle grade, but of course we don't know. So that's an important piece to, for us to know and for you to know.
And I think in terms of fantasy, you will see books that have, and we do know this takes place about 1/3 of the way through. So we know that there have been other characters, but we don't have the luxury at this point of knowing, is one of those characters an adult man and then an old woman, and then this, these scenes from this, possibly younger child. So one of the things that we actually recently talked about in office hours was body language. And that might be something you can use to sort of help us see how old this character is. So, we think of him as being beat up, but is it a case that he's, a gentle giant? Like, is he a 6 foot tall 17-year-old, but, in terms of where he might be functioning at a younger age. So, we sort of see him bumping on things or doing various things will sort of give us those clues to kind of where he is in that age range. So Donna, you mentioned word choice. Were there other things? Because one of the things that I noticed was the use of dialogue. I wasn't sure if you wanted to comment on that or not.
No, you talk about dialogue, and then I'll talk about the one thing that I have a question about.
Perfect. So you have a few points where you have the character saying things, where he shouts out and so forth, but you don't have it in quotes. So it's not clear to me if this is something that he's just thinking or whether or not it is something that he's saying out loud. If he's saying it out loud, you want to make sure that you have it in quotes, and you'll usually start a fresh line for that so we can sort of see that in there. If it's internal thought, you can just put it in italics, and that's kind of sometimes the most common way that you will see that. Or you'll see something like, it's going to fall in, I've got to save it, he thought. So that would be the other way to do it. But I would probably lean towards italics. Donna, your question.
Right. Well, it's back up at the beginning, and it in the 3rd paragraph, he can't make it up every day, which is interesting. This is really where the action starts in this particular scene, and I know, Eileen, you were thinking that is probably where the scene should start, which I won't take credit for that brilliant stroke, but I will say it. I have the mic. So in this paragraph, he can't make it up every day. It's clear to me that it's been several days since he's been up and he can't make it every day. So in my mind, I'm thinking it's been probably a few weeks since the earth shake happened. And again, maybe with the context of the rest of the story, we would know. But when the stone trembles and then falls, he has the motivation to grab it. So that left me thinking, okay, if I understand he got really badly burned and there was great risk to his personal well-being, but if it has in fact been even a week, my thinking is, not knowing this character well, that he would have figured out a way to shimmy and make it a little bit safer by now. Or it should be a little bit harder for him to actually reach those stones, because it seems just too easy that he's been sitting there watching them and going back to look at them when all it took was, burning his belly to grab them, and they're clearly that important to him. So that was my one comment.
Yeah, so I will jump in and say, I think you could start on that third paragraph and just make it clear, like it had been 2 weeks since the earth shook, and then sort of jump in, because that is really where the scene starts. And I would lean towards, I can see that he's just watching it, maybe waiting for things to cool down. It doesn't occur to him that they're not necessarily safe until they start moving. But then I want to really dig a little bit deeper. So when he's shimmering and it burns his belly, I want him to leap back, and then realize, like, okay, I still have to do something. And then he's maybe looking around. Is there, a tree limb or anything he can put underneath his stomach as he shimmies forward? Or does he just have to, push through because it's happening so fast, and he feels himself, or maybe there's a gross smell of his own skin. Sorry, Donna. But, really show that, he's taking great personal risk, and that this hurts very badly, or that it's very hard for him to do it, because you want to make sure that we have that conflict in this scene. Crystal, you were going to add something, I think.
Yeah, and it was partly, it was around that time thing, just in the beginning, where it says in the morning he dodges his dad's slap, and he's talking about, you have to clean up that mess from last night. It knocked down your Baba's shed. It does sound like he's talking about the earthquake was only last night. So that was something to clarify. And because he's saying it, but we have no lead in from that, we don't know what it is referring to. So just make sure, if you have started a new chapter, do it with the assumption that your reader might have gone to bed and then it's the next day before they're picking it up again. And so it just is good practice. The first time you mention something specific, try to give a hint of what that is, so that if we have had a gap in our reading, we know where to pick up, and that's easier. And there was one other place, and again, it just went back to that voice, and it was a few paragraphs in, when it says, then spent his eyes rest for a fond moment on his precious stones. And that's a very adult sentence. So it is from the outside in, but it makes it feel a little bit older in just that choice of language. And it also, a fond moment, we're already saying the stones are precious, and so it feels a little bit redundant with both of those. So it's like a super finicky little thing. It just seemed like an interesting combination of some of the stuff we talked about, with a little bit of that voice, a little bit of the age setting, and a little bit of examine those word choices in light of whatever age your audience is. If it is adults, that's a little bit different. You still want the character to feel the right age.
I just want to carry on, like the next sentence after that. I totally loved the too many thieving eyes and jeering voices. I really loved that phrase. So just as I'm hoping this is an adult novel.
And then I'm going to chime in and end on the part that I really enjoyed, which is these stones break open and he realizes that they're eggs. And then these bird-like creatures come out. And I've got a hunch that these are dragons. Or maybe I'm just hoping that they're dragons, but they're bird-like with fish scales, so I don't feel that I'm far off. And I think what is really nice is, I think you're setting up really well here that the character doesn't know that these are dragons, so that this is a world where dragons possibly have not existed or haven't been seen. So if you saw something like that, you would think it was some kind of weird bird. So that was a really good example of being in that character's point of view as he's describing something, that he would see this as a bird, like a weird looking bird, but a bird. And then I think my hunch is we're going to discover these are some dragons, which, what book isn't better with a little bit of dragons?
True. So true.
True story. Can I add one more little thing? I also love eggs, dragons, anything hatching is always very exciting. That last paragraph, I feel like you describe one of the eggs in terms of its color, and it's this beautiful like turquoisey thing, and it opens up and then the feathers are matching. But the other ones are kind of number 2 and number 3. Which seemed like a lost opportunity to give them a little bit of that like sparkly identity that you have with that first one. So if there was some sort of like fun identifying thing that he would latch onto as a difference, then that also helps us keep them straight in the scene and to keep our imaginings accurate. If they're all the same colors or are they different, that just opens up different possibilities, which is fun.
Thank you for saying that, because I thought that and then didn't go further, I guess. But I thought that too. It's like, oh, what color is that second egg? Is it red? Is it?
I need to know which one I'm going to like best.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, obviously,
That's
I'm choosing my color.
Which one are you going to buy when there's merchandising rights?
Exactly.
Exactly. So when in doubt, more dragons. That's our point. And I want to thank Ieva so much for submitting this piece. We really super appreciate it. And a reminder to everyone else, if you'd like us to take a look at some of your pages, then please submit them to the blue pencil session, or if you have a query, you can submit it to the red pencil. So we'll see you guys all around the Academy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.